Jaja, the Keeper of the Fire by Esther Stories and Folktales. In a time long before civilization, in a small African village nestled deep within the vast forest, life was simple but challenging. The villagers relied on fire for warmth and cooking, but making fire was a difficult task, one that many had forgotten how to do. With time, the scarcity of fire became a growing problem. One by one, the fires in their homes died out, leaving only one man with flames still flickering in his head. Jaja. Jaja was not like the others. He was tall, with a very large head and the widest mouth anyone had ever seen. His cleft palate only added to his unusual appearance. The villagers feared and mocked him, calling him names and laughing whenever he walked by. Children sang cruel songs and adults whispered behind his back. Jaja, angry and bitter, kept to himself, refusing to smile or speak kindly to anyone. But as the fire became scarcer, the villagers' attitudes changed. They began to gather outside Jaja's compound, desperate for warmth. But Jaja refused them all. His heart was hard with resentment from years of mistreatment. "You all laughed at me," he thought. "Now you will suffer without my fire." Days turned into weeks and weeks into months. The cold of the rainy season set in, and the villagers grew desperate. Some moved to neighboring villages, but many stayed, struggling to survive on raw food and fruits. The chill in the air was unbearable, and illness swept through the village. The people pleaded with Jaja for help, but he was unmoved. To ensure no one could steal his fire, he built a fence around his home and dug a deep pit, setting a trap for anyone who dared enter his compound. The situation grew more dire, and the villagers took their pleas to the king. The king summoned Jaja to the palace and commanded him to share his fire. Jaja agreed, but secretly he planned to lure anyone who came for fire into his trap. Amidst all that was going on in the village, there was a man and his young wife who lived in the village. The man's name was Yakubu, and he had a beautiful wife named Aminat. They had 2 children, a boy named Amzat and a girl in which they named Aisha. Yakubu's family, despite the hardship of the land, they still remained a happy family. Until one night, when the weather was intense, the cold beat so hard that little Aminat fell so sick that night. She was so cold and there was no fire to keep her warm. Yakubu, unable to bear to see his daughter so sick, stood up and was about leaving the house. But Aisha, his wife, stood in his way. She asked him where he was going. "I am going to Jaja's place to beg him for some fire, so I can keep my daughter warm," Yakubu told his wife. Aisha begged him not to go. "Please do not go, my husband. Anyone that goes never returns to tell the story," Aisha begged Yakubu, but Yakubu was adamant. He pacified his wife and promised her nothing would happen to him. He promised he would return safely, and then he left. For hours, Yakubu left and didn't come back, even until the next day. And the day after, Yakubu was missing. Little Aminat's condition deteriorated and became worse. Aisha began to cry and panic. She reported the matter of her missing husband to the king. But the king didn't do much because Jaja claimed Yakubu never entered his compound. Aisha wept and wept for her missing husband and her sick daughter. But Hamzat, her son, was a brave boy. He was only 10 years old, but he was a very wise boy. He patted his mother and told her not to cry anymore. When it was midnight, Hamzat sneaked out of the house and set out on the way to Jaja's house. He held a small pocket knife in his pocket and walked on the path to Jaja's house. When he got to Jaja's house, he passed through the back fence and sneaked noiselessly, trying not to raise any alarm, as he walked carefully by the side of Jaja's fence. He noticed a long rope hanging on a stone close to the large fire that burned from the firewood in Mr. Jaja's compound. His instincts told him there was something about the rope. He moved closer to the rope and cut it loose with a small knife in his pocket. Immediately he cut the rope. The top lid cover of a large deep well opened. Hamzat quickly sneaked to check what was in the well. He peeped into the well in the illumination of the largely burning fire in Jaja's compound. As he peeped, he gasped at what he saw. He saw so many of the villagers he knew. "Father!" Hamzat gasped, surprised as he saw his father among those in the well. Yakubu's face shone with hope the moment he saw Hamzat's face. "My son! Oh, my son!" Yakubu cried aloud. "Daddy, don't worry. I will get you all out of here," Hamzat said to his father with a reassuring smile. He looked and saw the rope he cut loose with his knife. It was a very long rope and still tied to a very big and heavy stone. Hamzat held the rope and threw it to the well for his father to climb the rope. "Father, climb the rope," Hamzat was saying. Yakubu's face lit up with hope. "My brave son," he said as he began to climb the rope. But before Yakubu could reach the top, Jaja appeared, his face twisted with rage. "You little brat," Jaja bellowed as he charged towards Hamzat. "How dare you trespass in my compound?" Terrified, Hamzat backed away, but Jaja grabbed him by the collar and lifted him off the ground. "I will teach you a lesson you will never forget," Jaja snarled, dragging Hamzat towards the fire. Just as Jaja was about to throw Hamzat into the flames, Yakubu, who had climbed out of the pit, tackled Jaja from behind. "Let go of my son," he shouted as they struggled. Hamzat beat Jaja's hand, causing him to drop him. Seizing the moment, Yakubu threw Jaja into the fire. The flames that Jaja had so jealously guarded consumed him, and the village was free from his tyranny. The villagers, freed from the pit, rejoiced and celebrated Hamzat's bravery. The king rewarded him with gifts, and little Aminat recovered quickly with the warmth of fire that Hamzat and his father brought home. Aisha was overjoyed and the family was reunited. From that day on, anyone could enter Jaja's compound to take fire. The villagers learned that kindness and unity were more powerful than fear and bitterness. And though they had lost a man who could have been a great ally, they gained a lesson that would be passed down for generations. The end.